Hey guys, I wanted to make another video about the photo editing I've been doing just because it's changed so much. It's been a little bit since the last video, and I had just started working in Photoshop. Now I do a lot of my editing in Photoshop. It's made my life a lot easier once I started understanding all the tools and layers and non-destructive editing. It's very cool. So I thought I'd just take you through how I started with this image here and ended up with this image here. They're not crazy drastically altered, but there are just a few things that I did that really help it pop and of course make it more universal so it doesn't matter what float tank it's in. Everybody can use this image. Oh, this is Simon. She's an ultra marathon runner. She's an absolute machine. She really trains harder than I think anybody I know at anything, let alone running. I mean, she's got an incredible mindset for athleticism and training. But yeah, anyway, we did this photo shoot quite a while ago. It was really fun, really awesome. She's got a lot of personality. She's obviously beautiful, and it just all came across through the camera into these images. It was really hard to narrow it down. I'm finally getting to these images, and yeah, let's go ahead and walk through it here. Previously, I had edited in Lightroom beforehand. I didn't make any edits on this one. I just dropped it right into Photoshop. And the first thing I'm going to do is use the lasso tool. I'm going to be circling all the different areas of the tank that show that it's a float tank or that lights are in, just arms reflecting into the tank. I want to grab those with my lasso tool, and then I'm going to do a content aware fill, which is this really, really, really cool algorithm that Photoshop has that they've really been advancing recently, which means that it will blend in with whatever's around it. It's not a perfect tool, but it tends to work pretty well with water. In this case, I'm letting it do it automatically, and then up here, I'm going to start needing to do some manual stuff. The most difficult piece is going to be the fact that her knee is going across the water, and so you're going to see what I do with that. It's going to look pretty rough at first, but by the time we get to the end, it'll make sense what I'm doing here. With manual corrections, well, by default, it's going to try to figure something out for me, and I'm going to say, no, 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 I want to get rid of any body tone, hair, anything like that, maybe some darker areas, anything like that you can just delete or add different areas, and then it's going to grab all those colors and textures and then try to paint them in the area that I've highlighted. So it's nice that you don't just have to leave it to the algorithm. You can do a little bit of manual yourself to try to bring it to what you want. Now, it's not perfect, and you'll see that I'll make some edits a little bit later on to bring it back to what I want it to be. Here, I decided instead of using the lasso tool and doing content aware fill, I figured I would do it's actually very similar to content aware tool, but it's a spot removal tool that you can choose a location around where you're trying to erase and just paint it along. It uses a little algorithm to integrate what you're doing in to what's around it. It works out really well. I'm doing this on a separate layer, so it's kind of like I put a clear piece of plastic over the image and I'm coloring on that. So if I want, I can just pick up that sheet and I can see what's underneath it, or anything I do, isn't affecting the original image. And then I'm starting to get lost a little bit in it. There's little specks or hairs in the water that I'm going to take out here. So here we are on the knee, and with this, what I'm going to do is do a rough selection of the knee. I'm going to inverse that selection. So what you're seeing right there on the knee is actually the only thing that's not selected. And then I'm going to grab a clone stamp tool. I'm going to paint. It's going to be a real rough painting, basically shooting out from the knee up to the top of the screen. What I'm trying to do is create a consistent color palette for when I do the content aware fill. So when I do a lasso, it's going to go through the water behind her knee. I'll explain that in a second, and up and around. So I'm not going to I need some kind of bridge of color for the algorithm to grab onto, because if I highlight her knee, any flesh color at all, it's going to blow that color out into the image, and it looks terrible. So here I am grabbing that color. You can see that I'm going to do the content aware fill manually, not just the automatic one. And I'm going to remove all of her body color, bathing suit, hair, anything like that to make sure that the color fill is really accurate to the rest of the pool. And then I'm going to do that in the larger section to the left as well. And here I'm just going to do some painting using the stamp tool to get colors from other areas and textures and blend that in. I have a very, very low fill percentage so that it doesn't, everything kind of blends together. I can use multiple colors, strokes, and it all starts blending together, and you can't tell that that were brush strokes at all. It just feels like water flowing and the color blending into the darker back area. Now that all looks hunky-dory, except that her knee looks like an 8-bit character out of a Nintendo Entertainment System. So that is a problem. So what I'm going to do is create what's called a mask for this top image here, the one that actually includes the knee. And what I'm going to do is basically erase what's visible. It's not actually erasing, this is non-destructive, but what a mask allows me to do is say what is seen and what isn't seen. And if I quote unquote erase a portion, it's going to show what's underneath it. So I'm going to carefully brush around her knee so that the previous knee is what's actually seen, if that makes any sense. Here, while hunting around for any blemishes, I see that there's a reflection on her foot, probably from a bar of the float tank or one of the lines of the tank. So I'm just going to blend that in here with my spot removal tool. The next thing I want to do is to remove any blemishes, anything like a pimple or something that was on her face that day. She has like incredibly perfect skin. I don't know how, maybe it's all that time running outdoors, I don't know. But I pretty much didn't have to do anything. I think I just found a couple spots where I did a little bit of removal. Now, one thing I did see, while her skin looks amazing, I do see that the bathing suit has some miscoloration or discoloration on it. So I'm going to use that same spot removal tool, which has that nice algorithm where you can grab from one area and it blends it together around the edges for what you're sourcing. And so here it takes a little bit, but honestly, incredibly fast overall to really correct this and make it seem like there's no aging or discoloration on her top here. And I think it looks nice. Here I'm creating two curves layers. This is where you can increase lights and darks. I'm going to have one that increases the brightness, and then I'm going to basically turn it off. It's a little bit hard to explain if you don't know Photoshop very well, but then I'll create one that is dark. This is setting up dodging and burning. So I'm going to increase the brightness in certain areas, dodging, and decrease the brightness or increase darkness, called burning. And here I'm just creating a black and white image where I can really clearly see. Actually, you know what? I accidentally went into blemish finding mode with my black and white image, and I'm just going to go in here since I did it. I'm going to look and see if I can find any blemishes that I missed. One tiny one, I think. I don't think I find any others. So now it's time to create a check layer for my dodging and burning. This is a pretty slow process in the grand scheme of things. It's pretty quick. Like you can get lost in it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's really easy to look at every little dark spot and want to lighten it, and every light spot that's around darkness to lower it so everything's nice and smooth and blended together. But I will say when people do that, it does start to look more and more artificial. So I really try to get a point where I want it to still look like this is a still shot of somebody, not a stylized image of somebody with tons of Photoshop work or modifications. This should look like somebody actually floating in a float tank. And I'll do things like bring out color, darkness, and light to illuminate them so it's pleasing without making them, look inhuman. Does that even make sense? So I've transferred it into Lightroom, and you can see the previous image with everything around it, and now here's the new image where she's really just floating in water, and I think her face pops a little bit more. From here, I'm going to do color adjustments. So not a whole lot, to be honest. The main thing I'm going to do is change the color of the water. A little embarrassing, our water's a little more green right now. We need to add some vitamin C in there, but I'm going to paint all around her using a masking tool in Lightroom, and then I'm going to turn it on to blue so I can see where I'm painting. The unfortunate thing about doing it with such an intense blue is my eye starts thinking that's normal, and then thinking like, oh yeah, this should be the color of the image. This should be the color of the water. And then I try to take a break and come back after creating a more neutral, or actually just like removing any changes to the color, and then going, okay, now what color do I want it at? I think in the end, I actually did get something pretty close to this, but this is just too intense. So once I get everything colored here, I'm going to turn off all the settings. Once I turn off the settings, it has that light green again, and then I'm going to bring the greens down to get a really white color, add blue in, and then I'm going to start playing with the green kind of purpley shader and pull that back and forth until it's the color that feels, if it's too blue, it feels cold. I like a little bit of green in there. It makes it feel a little bit warmer. I don't know if that's science behind that, but that's just how I feel about color. And then we're pretty much there. I'm just going to do a little bit of curves adjustment, bring out the whites a little bit more. I'm going to bring the darks down a little bit more, which just adds a little bit of depth. I'm going to bring the contrast down a little bit more. Just after messing with curves, it usually adds a bit of contrast. So I'm going to bring that down, and then I'm just going to bring the vibrancy up just a tiny bit so that her skin just has more vibrance to it, and makes it pop on your Instagram feed. So that's it. This is the final image. I'm very pleased with it. Again, this is the bonus set for the $50 tier of anybody supporting us on Patreon. You get a whole set of images of somebody floating. You get video of them floating. You have athletes floating, or an athlete floating photo set. And this month we have a bonus set, which means $50 tier people get that for free. And that's Simon here. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed editing it. I hope this is also a valuable tool for people to learn how to make their own edits. I don't want to be your only source of images. I can be, because it's really hard to consistently get original photography for your float center. So I can be that for you, but you'll probably want to do your own shoots once or twice a year to show off your float tanks and everything. But hopefully this gives you some insight into how you can do it on your own. And I've never put this out there before, but if you're interested in me doing post editing on your photos, I'm more than happy to do that. I'd love to. I would ask that you shoot in RAW, which is a really large image file, so that I can get to the really fine details and make sure that your images pop as much as possible. And that way you can also make them as big as you want and retain detail in the future if you ever wanted to make a poster or something like that. So all my images are very high detail. They're always shot in RAW, and yeah, they can be blown up for gosh, I've seen them on vans, billboards, window wrapping, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time I do one of these. I enjoy it. Actually, I plan on doing another one soon. There's a guy named Corey who's a bodybuilder. He has a ton of tattoos, really cool looking tattoos that I'm really excited. I think I'm going to have to flex a little bit here, pardon the pun, some of my skill sets to make sure that I'm retaining his tattoos and lighting him properly. So that'll be a fun one to show you guys. So we'll see you soon, hopefully about a month from now, to show you that one.